this is the reference Tyrannosaurus Rex. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck a plane in and convert it to an editable poly. I'm going to get rid of my grid with my G. And then in polygon mode, I'm just going to move this to somewhere convenient so that the edges are going to line up. So I'm not going to be too fussy about this first edge. And what I want to do is I just want to use the edge mode to quickly sketch out where the geometry is on this model. And while you're sketching, it's a good idea to have in mind where you want the mesh flow to be running. So I'm going to switch to screen mode. This means that whenever I move, I'm going to be moving parallel to this plane that represents the screen. And if I shift drag, you can see that it doesn't move along any of the orthogonal world axes. And then I'm just going to move the verts around till I'm happy that it kind of represents where I want it to be. And I'm using Alt middle mouse to do the orbit rotate. It's just a slightly quicker way of doing things. And you can control to pan and Alt to rotate. So I'm using shift drag to create a new quad from an edge, and I'm just going to keep shift dragging down until I've sketched out this leg. Now, when I put symmetry on, and I'm just going to show you, so I need to be outside of my sub-object selection to apply the symmetry, and I'm making sure that my pivot point is in the right place, and I can just go to modifiers and stick a symmetry on there, and need to flip it on the y-axis to get it right. And you can see that it will build the other side. Now, I'm not going to be too precious about building down his spine, because I actually want the mesh flow to be different. So I don't really need my symmetry modifier, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on this arm, and I want the mesh flow to come off of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit extra geometry in here. Whenever you add extra geometry, try and make use of it. I'm also going to switch to lasso tool, because I just prefer the way that it works. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to come up around the side. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to make sure that I get this vert in the corner of where that jaw line is. Let's work on the tail. It's just gonna always tweaking as you come around the model, deciding where you want the geometry to be. And again, I'm going to take the mesh flow off this and run down the side of the model. And again, you've got to remember about this thing about silhouette is that you want to work by thinking about your silhouette for your object. In other words, this doesn't look overly complex at the moment, but it is getting there as a quick sketch. Okay, this tail is clearly in need of a little bit of refinement. Neck needs a little bit of refinement as well. So this is quite good, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the geometry for the belly. I can fix up my vertex as I go. Probably going to have to subdivide that, but this is the interesting contour that I really want to get in, because there's a kind of a bulge. I guess this is where the pelvis bone comes in, and I just want to narrow this a little bit because it is quite a narrow protrusion. So I'm not going to worry too much about joining this geometry up. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to look at adding some more geometry to this chest and getting a bit more mesh flow around the belly. So note that I'm not going to worry too much about joining this geometry up because I don't need to. That comes later. So next I'm going to work on the fingers and just going to square this off a little bit. And then little cheat here, I think I will just copy this face over, keep it as an element, and then what I'll do is I'll line myself up down the claw and I'll just do a quick viewer line, and what that will do is it will flatten it almost as if it was against the screen, and then I can just adjust it, and there we go. So here I'm just going to add a bit of thickness to the arm, so I'm going to extrude out around the back of this elbow, and then I'm going to do another edge extrusion for the forearm. And then when I've got these two parts, I'm just going to go in and bridge between them, and that fills in that gap. Okay, so whoop, way too much zoom. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build up this foot. So I'm just going to extrude out, and then I'm going to tweak this, build the toe. And I'm not going to worry about the claw because that's going to end up probably being triangles, and I know that triangles are just going to ruin my mesh flow. So I'm just going to leave them to the end because I know it's going to be a quick fix. Right, let's see what this will look like with symmetry. I will fix that little problem. Okay, looks very, very basic. One of the things you've got to remember is, even though this looks very basic, you've got to remember that subdiv is our friend. So if we look at this with the turbo smooth, you can see that it will subdivide and we will get more geometry. We're not quite ready yet. Okay, so that's pretty good for a first pass. What I'll do next is show you how to fill it all in, so to speak.